Retired four-star General Jack Keane joins me this morning. General, welcome back to the show.
Delighted to be here.
President Trump wants our NATO allies to help keep the straits open. Can we not do that ourselves? Don't we have the naval power to do it ourselves?
Well, there's two things operating here. One is we have to reduce the Iranians' ability to attack those ships that are going through, and that is what we're working on very hard right now. So that's one thing. The second thing is just the force that it takes to escort. There's 2 ships per tanker, and there's hundreds of tankers. So, I mean, for the United States to do it, it would rob us of doing other things as well. In other words, actually fighting the war. So, yes, we can do some of it. If we had to do all of it, we could, but it would just slow down the trafficking quite a bit. So to actually just get the job done, the scale of it, we need other ships in other countries.
The president told the Financial Times of London that they might reschedule the meeting between the president and Xi Jinping unless he comes through and helps us keep the Strait of Hormuz open. Are they likely to help?
I think it's a stretch to it. I mean, this is their partner. This is their ally. They have a vested interest in Iran surviving this thing and coming out the other end with some capabilities so they can continue to be a thorn in the side of the United States and our allies in the region. I mean, they are linked together. Just as much as Russia and China are linked, those 3 countries, to include North Korea, they're the most significant strategic challenge. Those 4 countries working together that we have faced since World War II.
And we can't break them up.
And I don't think we can break them up. Just over negotiations. I don't think it would happen. And don't blame the president for trying.
Right. There's a lot of speculation that we've got 2,500 Marines in the area and special forces as well. The speculation is that maybe they'll go to that site where they've got all this uranium, enriched uranium, take the uranium and get rid of it, and that solves the problem. You anything about that?
Well, I think...
Can you tell me anything about that?
There are plenty of options out there to take down targets that are not conducive to airstrikes. So if there are targets out there, say enriched uranium, if that's the case, then certainly a raid-type operation would be appropriate.
And that's a possibility.
When the president has said, you know, I haven't ruled out ground forces, I think in the back of his mind, because he's been briefed, there are targets that it would be better to use a ground force raid to deal with that target than an airstrike.
It's not, you don't roll in with tanks and landing craft. You don't do that.
No, there are no plans here to do what Putin is doing. Putin is trying to take control of Ukraine and change the political order, put a stooge in place. And he's been failing on that for 4 years. He's in his 5th year of trying to do that. What we're doing here is not that at all. All we want to do is take away their offensive capability now and in the future from attacking, to include nuclear weapons. The Israelis, Stuart, they have added a little bit more to that. They're helping us do that and doing a significant heavy lifting. Of the last weekend, when Central Command reported 15,000 strikes against Iran have taken place, 9 of those 15,000 have been done by Israel. So they are significantly involved here. But the other thing that they're doing is destroying the organizations that sustain the regime. IRGC, Law Enforcement Command, the Basim militia, which is the repressive arm, the police infrastructure. And the mission they've given themselves, in addition to taking down the offensive weapons now and in the future, is to set the conditions for an eventual regime collapse. That is what they are about. So those 2 tasks, we're working on our piece. They're helping us with our piece in terms of the weapons. And the other one, hopefully in the future, the regime collapses and they begin to change themselves, and eventually the people get involved in being able to do it also.
Some Democrats are beginning to question the mission, it seems to me. We've got Congressman Jim Hines questioning the end goal of Operation Epic Fury. Just watch this.
There's a reason why Democratic and Republican presidents in the last 30 years haven't done the attack that Donald Trump decided to do. And again, every American who's filling their tank today at 60 cents a gallon higher than it was 2 weeks ago is going to understand why that is. We've already lost 13 people in the Iran conflict. We could lose more. So, it's a little early to cheer this president.
So we need unity in this country if we're going to fight a war successfully.
Yeah, in all due respect to the congressman here, I mean, is he ignoring history here? Iran has killed over 2,000 of us, going all the way back to 1983, when they blew up 2 embassies and a Marine barracks and kept killing us over the next decades. Yeah. They attacked during the Biden administration when there was a Democratic president. During his administration, at our bases in Iraq and Syria, over 300 times. And we never responded against Iran. How long do we perpetuate this killing of us? And we should not do it because of oil prices. I think if you ask the American people straight out, are you willing to put up with higher oil prices for several weeks while we finish this regime and stop them from killing us and attacking our bases? And the fact that they may have nuclear weapons capability and they fully intend to build missiles that can reach Europe and the United States? I think the overwhelming majority, if that question was asked properly, would say, let's get on with it.
Yeah, phrase the question like that, and do it.
Oil prices aside, I mean, I challenge the congressman to deal with those facts and to come to that same conclusion he just said, that over oil prices, we shouldn't do it. When it comes to casualties, the initial casualties killed in combat was in the first 24 hours. We haven't had any casualties killed in combat since that. These casualties, fortunately and blessedly, are enormously light. True of the civilians' casualties and military casualties also in Israel. And we're thankful for that.
We are indeed. General, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming to see us today.
Yeah. Always great talking.
Yes, sir.